Picture a vast, swirling mass of trash, twice the size of Texas, floating endlessly in the Pacific Ocean. This is no dystopian fiction, it's the horrifying reality of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. A monstrous accumulation of plastic waste threatening both marine life and human health. Discovered in 1997, this floating graveyard of humanity's discarded plastics lies trapped in the North Pacific Gyre, a vortex of ocean currents. Rather than a solid mass, it is a deadly soup of microplastics, fishing nets, and other debris. These tiny fragments outnumber marine organisms in some areas, turning the ocean into a plastic wasteland. The damage is catastrophic. Sea turtles mistake plastic bags for jellyfish and die from ingestion. Seabirds, their stomachs filled with plastic shards, starve to death. Even plankton, the foundation of the marine food chain, are contaminated, and it doesn't stop there. Microplastics infiltrate the fish we eat, bringing the crisis directly to our dinner plates. This patch isn't shrinking, but it's growing. Every year, millions of tons of plastic enter the oceans, much of it ending up here, breaking down into smaller, more insidious pieces that are nearly impossible to clean up. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch isn't just an environmental disaster, it's a warning. If we don't act now to reduce our plastic consumption and clean up our oceans, this floating nightmare will only expand, choking marine ecosystems and poisoning life on Earth. How will we respond to this urgent call for action? On the shores of Hawaii's Kamilo Beach, a once pristine paradise, a haunting reality unfolds. Known as the dirtiest beach in the world, Kamilo starkly reminds us of humanity's ongoing battle with nature. Here, waves don't just bring sand, they deliver endless plastic waste, transforming this tropical haven into a graveyard of pollution. Kamilo Beach sits at the receiving end of the Pacific Ocean currents, which funnel a horrifying amount of plastic debris onto its shores. Broken fishing nets, microplastics, and discarded bottles pile up in layers, some of it buried beneath the sand, some of it floating in the surf. This beach, once a sanctuary for wildlife, now traps marine animals in its synthetic snare. The numbers are staggering. An estimated 15 to 20 tons of plastic wash up on Kamilo Beach every year, equivalent to the weight of about 10 average-sized cars. This isn't just any eyesore, it's an ecological catastrophe. Sea turtles ingest plastic, mistaking it for food. Albatrosses feed plastic to their chicks, dooming them to slow, painful deaths. Toxic chemicals leaching from the debris seep into the ecosystem, affecting everything from the smallest plankton to the fish we eat. Kamilo Beach is more than a local crisis, it's a global call to action. Every piece of plastic litter, no matter where it's discarded, could end up here or worse in the stomach of a creature struggling to survive. It's a horrifying glimpse into the future unless we act now to turn the tide. In the middle of the South Pacific Ocean lies Henderson Island, a UNESCO World Heritage Site once untouched by humanity. But in 2017, researchers made a horrifying discovery. This remote island, thousands of miles from civilization, was drowning in plastic waste. Henderson Island's beaches were found to be littered with over 37 million pieces of plastic, weighing more than 17 tons. Every wave brought more garbage, a relentless invasion carried by ocean currents. Fishing nets, bottles, toothbrushes, and countless microplastics blanketed the sand. This wasn't just an ecological disaster, it was proof of humanity's far-reaching impact on the planet. What's terrifying is how fast the problem grows. Every day, an estimated 13,000 pieces of new plastic wash ashore, trapping crabs, choking seabirds, and polluting the food chain. Henderson's isolation doesn't protect it, it condemns it, as ocean currents funnel waste to its shores, turning it into a dumping ground for the world's trash. The plastic doesn't stay on the island. It breaks down into microscopic pieces, entering the ocean and spreading toxins across the marine ecosystem. Fish, sea turtles, and other creatures ingest these plastics, which eventually find their way back to our plates. Henderson Island isn't just a tragedy, it's a stark warning. No place on Earth, no matter how remote, is safe from the devastating effects of plastic pollution. Without immediate action, even our most distant paradises will become monuments to our waste. When a once vibrant bay transforms into a toxic wasteland of plastic, the consequences are dire. Manila Bay, once a symbol of natural beauty in the Philippines, is now one of the most polluted bodies of water in the world, suffocated by mountains of plastic waste. Every day, Metro Manila generates up to 10,400 tons of waste, with a significant portion contributing to the pollution in Manila Bay, much of it plastic, equivalent to the weight of about 70 blue whales. This relentless tide of waste doesn't just float, it chokes marine life, clogs waterways, and creates a breeding ground for disease. Turtles are found entangled in plastic fishing lines, fish ingest microplastics, and birds feed on bottle caps, mistaking them for food. The problem stems from rapid urbanization and poor waste management systems. Manila, home to over 13 million people, struggles to manage its garbage, much of which ends up in rivers that feed directly into the bay. The infamous garbage islands in the bay grow larger by the day, visible reminders of humanity's addiction to plastic. But the crisis isn't contained to Manila Bay. Plastics from the bay flow into the Pacific Ocean, joining the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and threatening marine ecosystems far beyond the Philippines. Manila Bay's plastic crisis is more than just an environmental disaster, it's a human one. It highlights how unchecked pollution and neglect can destroy not only natural beauty, but also livelihoods, health, and the future of generations to come. Beneath the tranquil waves of the Mediterranean lies a hidden horror, a toxic soup of plastic waste that's strangling one of the world's most iconic seas. With over 1 million tons of plastic entering its waters annually, the Mediterranean has become one of the most polluted seas on Earth. From golden beaches to coral-rich seabeds, no corner is safe. Microplastics outnumber fish in some regions, infiltrating the marine ecosystem. Plastic bags, bottles, and fishing nets clog the waters, killing turtles, dolphins, and other sea life. Endangered species suffer too, ensnared by debris or poisoned by chemicals leaching from the plastic. The source of the crisis is both local and global. The 150 million residents of Mediterranean nations, coupled with millions of tourists, contribute to the relentless flow of plastic. Poor waste management systems and over-tourism exacerbate the problem. Worse still, the Mediterranean's semi-enclosed nature traps the plastic in its currents, ensuring it doesn't wash away but builds up instead. This isn't just an environmental catastrophe, it's a human one. Microplastics have entered the food chain, contaminating fish, shellfish, and even sea salt. The Mediterranean, a cradle of civilization, faces the unthinkable. A legacy as a plastic wasteland, unless drastic action is taken to curb the tide and restore this iconic sea to its former glory. The Ganges, a lifeline for over 400 million people in India, is drowning in plastic waste. Once revered as sacred, this iconic river now carries an estimated 600 tons of plastic annually, making it one of the most polluted waterways on Earth. From discarded plastic bags and bottles to industrial debris, the river is choked at every turn. Microplastics, tiny fragments invisible to the naked eye, contaminate its waters, infiltrating fish, plants, and even human food supplies. Sacred rituals and offerings, often wrapped in plastic, unintentionally worsen the crisis, compounded by poor waste management in cities along its banks. The impact is catastrophic. Aquatic life, including critically endangered species like the Ganges river dolphin, is being suffocated. Toxic chemicals from degrading plastics seep into the water, making it hazardous not only for wildlife, but also for millions who depend on the river for drinking, bathing, and irrigation. The Ganges isn't just a river, it's a cultural and spiritual symbol. Yet without urgent intervention to reduce plastic pollution, this sacred waterway risks becoming an irreversible environmental tragedy. Protecting the Ganges is more than preserving a river, it's safeguarding the livelihoods, health, and heritage of generations to come. The time to act is now. The Yangtze River, the longest in Asia, is drowning in plastic waste, with over 300,000 tons of plastic entering its waters each year. This once mighty river, crucial to millions in China, now carries an alarming amount of pollution that threatens not only the environment, but also the health of countless people. Plastic bags, bottles, and industrial waste litter the river's surface, with microplastics infiltrating the water. The waste accumulates in tributaries and on riverbanks, poisoning aquatic life and contaminating vital resources. Fish, turtles, and other creatures mistake plastic for food, leading to death and ecosystem collapse. The massive scale of pollution is fueled by rapid industrial growth and poor waste management systems. As China continues to urbanize, its rivers, including the Yangtze, become dumping grounds for plastics. Every year, millions of tons of waste find their way into the river, feeding into the global plastic crisis. The Yangtze is more than just a river. It's a lifeline for millions of people. But the growing tide of plastic is endangering that very future. If the pollution continues unchecked, the river's once pure waters will become a toxic wasteland, threatening the livelihoods and health of those who rely on it. Immediate action is needed to save the Yangtze and the future of China's environment. The Caribbean Sea, renowned for its crystal clear waters and vibrant marine life, is drowning in plastic. Every year, over 320,000 tons of plastic waste remain uncollected in the Caribbean. suffocating ecosystems and polluting pristine beaches. What once was a symbol of tropical paradise now faces an ongoing environmental catastrophe. The waters are filled with plastic bags, bottles, and fishing gear, which entangle marine animals and disrupt coral reefs. The root of the crisis lies in both local and global factors. Heavy tourism, poor waste management systems, and inadequate recycling efforts all contribute to the flood of plastic waste entering the sea. The Caribbean is surrounded by major shipping routes, and waste from distant countries makes its way into the region's waters. The devastating effects of plastic pollution extend beyond wildlife. The Caribbean economy, heavily dependent on tourism and fishing, is at risk. Beaches once frequented by tourists now serve as dumping grounds, and fish caught in contaminated waters are increasingly unsafe for consumption. The Caribbean Sea's plastic crisis is an urgent call to action. If nothing changes, this paradise will continue to deteriorate, and the damage to marine life, livelihoods, and future generations will be irreversible. Which plastic pollution event story impacted you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know if you'd like to see a part 2 exploring more plastic pollution events. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the events that have shaped our environment, because every plastic pollution event has a story worth telling.